It was nearing midnight when Claire parked her car in the mostly empty lot behind the office building. She worked the graveyard shift as a security guard at Blackwood Industries, patrolling the empty halls and keeping watch over the facility. It wasn't glamorous work, but the pay was decent, and she didn't mind the solitude. As Claire entered through the back door and made her way to the security office, her footsteps echoed through the long, sterile corridors. The fluorescent lights cast an eerie glow over the place. During the day, these halls bustled with employees going about their work. But at night, the atmosphere felt heavy and oppressive, as if the building itself was watching Claire's every move. Settling into the security office, Claire pulled up the camera feeds on the monitors before her. Everything seemed normal. The offices and cubicles were still, the furniture sitting undisturbed beneath the fluorescent lights. On another feed, Claire could see the large manufacturing floor, filled with hulking machinery, now motionless in the shadows. Claire leaned back in her chair, preparing for another long and uneventful shift. But as midnight approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The building felt different tonight. She kept glancing up at the monitor feeds, expecting to see something out of place. But nothing ever changed on the screens. Nearing 2 a.m, Claire rose from her chair to begin her rounds. She stepped out into the hallway, the click of her shoes reverberating down the long corridor. As she walked, Claire swore she heard other faint footsteps behind her. She paused and looked back, her heart rate quickening. But no one was there. Shaking off the unease, Claire continued on. But the further she went, the more the hairs on the back of her neck prickled. The fluorescent lights above her began to flicker and buzz. Claire wondered if an electrical storm was rolling in, causing power fluctuations in the building. As she approached the large double doors leading to the manufacturing floor, Claire hesitated. She could have sworn she heard whispers coming from the other side. Leaning in, Claire pressed her ear against the cold metal door. The whispers grew louder, though she couldn't make out any words. The voices sounded close, as if someone was right on the other side. Claire's pulse pounded in her ears. This was impossible. No one could be in there. She was the only living person in the building tonight. Unless... No, she refused to let her mind go there. Taking a deep breath, Claire pushed open the doors and stepped warily onto the factory floor. Her footsteps echoed as she swept her flashlight around the massive room. The heavy machinery sat like sleeping beasts in the darkness. She listened closely, but the whispers had gone silent. Claire moved among the machines, searching for any sign of an intruder. But she was alone. Shaken, Claire hurried back to the security office. She decided to go through the camera archives to see if they caught any unusual activity she might have missed. As the footage skipped backward in time, Claire's blood turned to ice. There, on the screen, the double doors to the factory floor swung open by themselves. Claire's own solitary figure walked through shortly after. But those doors definitely opened unprompted, as if by an invisible hand. Frantically clicking through the feeds, Claire felt a growing sense of dread as more unexplained events revealed themselves. Shadowy figures darted around the edges of the frames. Dark masses passed through restricted areas when no one was near. Equipment turned on inexplicably in empty rooms. The activity traced back weeks, then months. This place was haunted, and whatever lurked here had been growing stronger, no longer content with keeping to the periphery. Claire wanted desperately to flee the building and never return, but she still had hours left on her shift. She couldn't abandon her post now. Over the next few hours, the phenomena increased. Whispers and shrieks resonated through the walls. Spectral shapes darted rapidly down the hallways. The lights strobed erratically, casting the surroundings in chaotic, flickering darkness. When her shift finally ended at 6 a.m., Claire ran for the exit. In the early morning light, the building appeared normal once again. But Claire knew that come nightfall, the lurking horrors would resume their unsettling activities. Exhausted and rattled, Claire knew she had to make a choice. She could keep quiet about what she witnessed and carry on with her job, letting the ghosts continue haunting these halls. Or she could speak up and risk sounding crazy and losing her job, but possibly prompt an investigation into the chilling events plaguing this place. For now, Claire decided to keep her silence. But as she drove away, she sensed unseen eyes watching her departure, and whispered voices seeming to call her back. Claire returned to work the next night, filled with dread. She considered calling out sick, but she needed the money too desperately. As the sun sank below the horizon, Claire parked in her usual spot, staring up at the office building looming in the twilight. She tried to mentally prepare for the horrors that would come again once inside. With hesitant steps, Claire entered through the back and made her way towards the security office. The lights in the hallway flickered more violently tonight, and the ever-present whispers were louder, almost intelligible. As she walked by a bathroom, Claire heard a noise inside, like leaky pipes gurgling. But when she cautiously looked in, the room was empty, the sinks dry. Settling into the security office, Claire pulled up the camera feeds with shaky hands. She decided to keep an extra close eye on the archives tonight. As she skimmed through the footage, Claire felt her stomach drop. Over the last 24 hours, inexplicable activities had escalated throughout the building. More alarming was what she saw on the screen showing the exterior parking lot. The video showed Claire's car sitting alone from last night into the morning. But at one point, a dark humanoid shape seemed to manifest right beside her car, briefly obscured by the vehicle. When it moved again, nothing was there. Claire's mind reeled. Had this entity attached itself to her when she left last night? Claire's radio crackled, making her jump. The booming, distorted voice of her supervisor came through, asking her to immediately check the archive room on the 4th floor. Claire responded with feigned calmness, then headed out, clutching her flashlight. The elevator's flickering light did little to settle her nerves as she ascended. The archive room's double doors stood ajar when Claire arrived. Cautiously, she swept her light across the massive room, filled with rows of tall shelving units, housing countless boxes of files and records. As Claire moved slowly into the shadowy aisles, she began to detect subtle signs of activity. A thin coating of dust on the floor was marked by what looked like the trails of many footprints. Boxes seemed subtly shifted out of place. And was that faint whispering she heard between the shelves? Heart pounding, Claire backtracked towards the doors. But halfway there, they suddenly slammed shut, trapping her inside. Claire ran to them in panic, pulling desperately on the handles, but they refused to budge. The whispers around her swelled, and Claire spun around, sensing invisible figures closing in. As the room darkened, Claire dropped to her knees, pleading for mercy from forces unknown. When dawn finally broke, Claire was found by a coworker, curled up on the archive room floor. Though she was physically unharmed, Claire never returned to work again. But sometimes, late at night, she still hears faint whispers calling to her. And she knows deep down that whatever haunts that building has left its mark upon her.